Hey, what's going on, guys? Indy here with Ultimate 2 Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the Egretech, or Egretech, however they want to say it. This is the Sonic 1200 watt power station. Now, I've looked at a few power stations in the past. Looked at a Vivor, which is still working to this day. Quite a while ago, saw that one. Still works great, although it's not a lot of power, though. I had an EcoFlow one for about 6 months, very loose on that one, and that one failed. But I want to change the way that I do these types of reviews in the fact that I'm going to show you everything I like about this, my initial thoughts, initial testing, but I'm not going to give you guys a recommend or not recommend on this thing until at least 6 to 10 months later when I actually keep using these things, because these things aren't cheap. And this thing is like $400-ish, kind of street price right now. And that's not necessarily cheap, and you're getting, a lot of battery backup power in here. Lots of them can go wrong. And a lot of these companies, they throw a lot of claims on these things. Like, they're super well made, commercial made, they're the best protection, blah, blah, blah. That all doesn't mean anything unless this thing can actually last for quite a while. So anyways, the Egretech, this is the Sonic 1200, very simple design. I like how minimal design this thing is. Right off the bat, though, I will say one thing I'm not a huge fan of. This whole dial here, I did some testing right when I got this thing in. It's almost impossible to read this out in the daylight. When I did this thing, I pulled this thing out, I plugged in my 120 watt EcoFlow solar panel, and I had this thing charge up when I got it in around noon. I think UPS dropped it off at, and I charged it all the way until sunset. This thing was at about 50%. I got it to about, I think about 80% by then. That was about 8 hours or so that day. Charging on that thing. And I'm in Florida, so plenty of sun, no rain, no clouds, perfect conditions to charge this thing up. And 8 hours, I got about from 50% to about 80%. So I got about 30% charge there using 120 watt solar panel there, which those things are not cheap, nor are they small or compact or light. So this is nothing against the Egretech on that one. That just kind of let you guys know in general how long these things do take to charge, and this is not a cheap way to do things at times. I'm just going to let you guys know from my experience using a couple of these now, it's not what I first expected from watching other reviewers and from actually using them in real life conditions. That is one thing I will say. But when you plug into power, this thing charged up in about 20 minutes from 80% to 100. It was super fast. So if you want to charge this thing with solar, I'd say definitely recommend getting at least 200 watt plus solar panels. Yeah, they're going to be big. Yeah, they're going to be heavy. But if you want to use solar, that's the way to go. All right, so pulling up the manual here, let's check out some of the specs on this thing. So, of course, AC output. This is the important stuff here, is all your output power. If you want to know for input, this is going to be your solar power input here, the XT60 charging port, max rate at 200 watts, so like a 200 watt solar panel there. Remember, just because you have a 200 watt solar panel doesn't mean the solar panel is actually going to output that. That's going to be the max output rating when it gets basically a perfect condition for getting max amount of sun. Depending on where you are in the world, if you're up in like Antarctica, and you have clear skies, you're probably not going to get nowhere near 200 watts out of a 200 watt solar panel. In Florida here, I think I averaged around 40 to 60 watts out of my 120 watt solar panel. And that was for basically full sun. I was moving it every hour, making sure I was getting maximum charging there. So it was very slow. Of course, input is 12 amp hour max there. And let's go down to the outputs here. AC output port is going to be, of course, 120 watt. And then we are going to have a maximum of 120 watt output. When you get close to that, these type of power stations do not like running close to their max rated. I've seen my Egretech shut off around 1100 watts when I was definitely testing this thing out, and they do shut off before those max load ratings. Car charger port here, we're going to see a max DC of around 10 amps, full load output about 120 watts there. This does have a wireless charging area, which is actually right up here on the top. You can see right where that is marked here. I had no problem setting my phone down in its case, and I was able to move it around a little bit. It was still charging. I noticed a few reviews kind of mentioned that it was kind of finicky to get charging, but I had no issue with my phone at all, and I was able to just set it down, start charging, no big deal there. And I actually think that's a great addition for the extra space up on top. Wireless charging port, great design by Egretech on that one. All the usual stuff for the USB ports then, the max 24 watts and 100 watts on USB-C. Pretty standard there. Egretech, I feel like the design of this thing is pretty smart. We have a front-mounted light, which is, believe it or not, pretty bright. This is actually a great design. It's not like a spotlight or a floodlight, but it's more of just like a, hey, you're using it, here's a light. So this is like in the back of your car, back of your SUV, and you're like, hey, I need to plug in some stuff, but it's dark out. Pop on the power, pop on the light button, there you go. Great, useful light. This is actually was probably designed by somebody who's actually needed light, and this thing was sitting somewhere, you know, in their car. They're like, yeah, I need something just right here, kind of give me some, you know, get my bearings where everything's plugging in. Great design here on that. Moving over to the side here, check this out. This is your vent panels. Now, this is a fake vent panel here. This is where your inputs are, and I love this design because there actually is a fan intake here, and this is actually a fake intake, kind of making it real, actually, if there's an intake behind it. So here is your AC input, and here, of course, is going to be your solar input. But it's not necessarily only solar, because this is also going to be your cigarette lighter input as well, too. You can plug that in there. And then this goes, of course, has a solar panel adapter on there. All right, so that is the left side here. Moving over to the right side, I'm using actually my studio lights. They're actually plugged into this right now. Using only about 39 watts. Gives me about 24 hours. I charged this thing up about a week ago to 100%. We are now down 1%, which is not bad at all. It's telling you, hey, what power we're using, what things are on. So if I turn USB power off, notice how those will then turn off on here. I'll turn DC off. And notice how that turns off there too. That's pretty nice. We also have a light below each one that tells me, hey, are they on or off? And then, of course, it tells me that on the screen if they're on or off too. I would like, you know, something a bit bigger than this light. It's kind of hard to tell, you know, if you're in the bright, it's really bright out, you can't really see this. You could have something like a ring light around the outputs, be kind of a cool design if they had that. I would say the biggest thing that I don't like about the Egretech is this is something that the EcoFlow had and did very well, is going to be pass-through power. Now, or pass-through charging. Watch, I'll plug this into power. You'll notice my studio lights just went off. It clicks off all of the outputs that are plugged in. So my AC output just clicked off. It's now going to start charging. Now, if I were to pull this out, it's going to go off charging. I then have to then turn back on my AC output here, and that'll then turn my studio lights back on. So pass-through charging at this price point, I think would be very well worth it. And that's my biggest criticism of this Sonic 1200. Would love to see that. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I've seen so far using this kind of day to day. The addition of the wireless charging up on top, I think, does kind of make up for it though too. That's a fantastic design, having wireless charging up there. Let's check at the bottom here. We can get some more specs as well. So this is going to be our Sonic 1200. We have a capacity of 27 amp hours. That's at 37 volts. AC input, all the usual stuff here of 1,000 watts maximum. All the regular USB car port wireless charging. Your wireless charging, by the way, is at 15 watts max there. This thing, of course, is about as heavy as you would expect it. You know, I think it weighs, I'll put that on screen here, what it weighs, but not too heavy, about the same as the EcoFlow. They all have batteries in it. There's not really a good way to make these things, you know, lighter because everything's using lithium-ion batteries, of course, so no real way to do that. But, of course, you've got USB-C, regular USBs. I think it kind of has everything that you want on here. I mean, there might be a few other, you know, plugs they could throw in here, but it's very just clean, very modern, sleek looking unit here. And once I get this thing tested out for a good amount of time, I'm going to let you know guys my actual, you know, recommend, don't recommend on this. But so far, I'm quite impressed by the Egretech. As long as this thing holds up, I like the overall feature set. Very simple, very easy to use. And just a couple of minor criticisms here and there. As this, of course, is hard to read in direct sunlight. Nothing against the actual unit itself, but of course, you know, solar charging is slow unless you have a much bigger, much more expensive panel. Again, though, that's just not me. I just have a 120 watt panel. Nothing you can do there. 2 AC outlets, which makes sense. I mean, wish there was maybe 4 on here would be kind of cool. And I do, of course, like the top wireless charging that no one else seems to have. Super useful. It'd be even cool if they had like 3 up here. They got plenty of space up on top for more wireless charging. Would love to see even more of those up there. It'd be kind of cool. You know, so like 3 phones up there. That'd be kind of cool just because there is so much space up there. But guys, that's my thoughts on the Egretech Sonic 1200. Pretty solid unit. Again, I can't just test in one video here the actual durability and reliability of this, but I got a couple of trips that I'm going to take in here, going camping. I got some, you know, longer jobs that I go on where I'm gone for a day or two. I'm going to be testing this thing out, charging lots of stuff off of it, and seeing how this thing actually holds up. So far, guys, I like it so far. Very clean, modern design, and overall everything seems to be rather accurate on here with what's happening with the unit. So guys, thanks for watching, take care, have a great day, and stay safe out there.